Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kevin Nealon. Our top story tonight, it appears congratulations are in order. We are monitoring things closely as details continue to come in, but it seems, yes, I have confirmation. We're talking about you, Joseph. Congratulations. You really outdid yourself this time, which probably wasn't that hard. Our team has discovered footage from one of the many celebrations taking place in your honor. Stay away from drugs, kids. Now for some deeper analysis, let's go live via satellite to our special guest commentator, Other Kevin. Other Kevin, what are your thoughts on all this? Speechless, Kevin. Wow. Just wow. Insightful as always. Thank you. Well, I'm now being told that we are out of time and that I should pull this lever. I'm Kevin Nealon. Thanks for watching. Take care, Jimmy. Thanks, Bob.
Joseph Jaffe. Why does that name sound so suspiciously familiar? Maybe because your secret screen name is Not Famous for You? What do you mean by not famous for you, Joseph? Chris Hansen here of Hansen versus Predators. To catch a predator and have a seat with Chris Hansen. Now, Joseph Jaffe, I'm going to need you to have a seat right over there. I see some suspicious activity. Something about a television show, doing interviews, 200 guests, something like that. But, Joseph, you are not famous. And the people on your show, well, they're not infamous like my shows. But remember, Jaffe is not famous. So let's keep it that way. I'll be watching and listening. Behave.
This is my best kind of show notes. We didn't touch one of them, not even one of them. I'm not sure which one is Paul Rudd and which one is Lane Green.
Final card here is the ultimate outcome.
Today is Take Your Dog to Work Day.
Like Scooby-Doo.
Without further ado, his debut.
Sweet Caroline.
Everybody say hello to Sammy. Is it not good?
I'm just pausing so that you just are on the front of your screen.
I'm so enormously flattered.
Branding is not a bad blind date.
I'm gonna have to take a picture of this.
No, this is agape. This is love.
I really enjoyed this. You did do your homework. You asked great questions.
I'm flattered. Thank you. You just made my day.
Look at you. You are insane.
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane.
did I do that?
You're insane.
You know, I have to tell you that, first of all, hello, how are you? Welcome back. Where have you been all my life? You've been just waiting for me to hit the go live button, not the end stream, but the go live button. Watching some of these promos for the show and getting a little nostalgic. First of all, the Kevin Nealon one, he has the same producer that I have, which is basically if you put your finger to the ear and pretend someone is talking to you, well, you know what? You can actually talk back. And I suppose, what do they say? The first sign of madness is talking to yourself. The second sign is listening or responding. And then, of course, you know, Chris Hansen to catch a predator. Thank God they have not caught me yet. And more importantly, I'm not a predator, just for the record. But at the time that was recorded, I had 200 guests. Now, number 600 and more or less 50. Could be 640, could be 660, not 660, 666, not the sixes, because that would be the devil. And this man is no devil. He's an angel. He's an angel that I've gotten a little bit of a chance to get to know. We are now new best friends, separated only by an island called Manhattan. And he's going to be coming on the show soon to be talking about CX or CO, customer obsession, customer experience. It is a topic near and dear to my heart. And then finally you saw a little bit of Cecil Colton. Those were the days when I used to have show notes, and then I realized who needs show notes, who needs questions, when you can actually become an active listener. and be able to have a real conversation. So that's why I have no idea what the hell's going to come out of my mouth, nor my guest, but you will see Jason very, very soon. As always, I begin the show with my why statement. This idea of helping entrepreneurs, owners, and their leadership teams get unstuck, return to growth, and become forever change. What do I mean by getting unstuck? Well, when I started this show, the purpose, it was March 2020, and we were all stuck at home or stuck in general. A lot of us are still stuck. And so the antidote to being stuck or to solve being stuck is to get unstuck. And if you'd like to always get a daily dose or a weekly dose of HPO, it's not TV, it's HPO, hope, positivity, and optimism, please subscribe to the show. What does it mean, growth? Well, I help entrepreneurs and leadership teams, business owners, small and medium businesses return to growth, because if we're not growing, we are stagnating. And if we are stagnating, we are declining, we are falling back, we are dying. But growth isn't always market share and top line and bottom line. Sometimes it can be growing up. Sometimes it can be growth in terms of emotional intelligence, in terms of team health. And I think that's a really important point. And then finally, Forever Change, the title of my new book, How a Global Pandemic Changed My Direction, My Purpose, and My Life. Now, Monday through Friday, because I remain a face for radio, I do an audio first in Clubhouse and in Discord, an audio session just to kind of get you motivated, get you off on the front foot, on the right foot, while you're getting the kids ready for school, while you're on the treadmill, walking the dog, or just commuting to the big bad city. And it's really been a highlight of my morning. We do live book reads at the moment for Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive and Crucial Conversations, live book reads and discussions. And one of the more recent ones was this concept of the pool of shared meaning. And in fact, this is a concept from Crucial Conversations, how to, I would say, not resolve, but how to actually bring almost conflict into the workplace, or just deal with it respectfully and functionally. What do you do when there are differences of opinions, where stakes are high, and where emotions run large? And so what I did is I actually created a fable called The Pool of Shared Meaning. And if you are interested in hanging out, come and join us live, or you can subscribe to the pod at bit.ly/collective cafe to go. But now, forget about going. I want you to stay. And we're going to have a little seated soliloquy today in my guest's honor called Easy Peasy Lemon Squeezy. You know, one of the things that Jason talks about, and it's something that really connected with me, is this notion of making it easy to do business with. And it's not something that we should even think about in terms of business. We could think about it in life as well. Every single time we interact with another human being, with a company, with a function, with a transaction, how easy is it to actually go through the motions, to be able to get out on the other side? Are we making it hard, difficult, challenging? Are we creating points of inefficiency, chasms, mini chasms, obstacles, friction, as it's often called? Or are we obsessing on how to actually get them from A to B, not via C, but the what do they say? The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. A company, and I'm going to ask Jason, so he's in the green room right now, or the brick room, and I'm going to ask him about companies that make it very easy to do business with, and then companies that make it really, really difficult. And more importantly, why do they make it difficult? A company that, of course, let's just get it out on the table. Let's get beyond Apple. But Apple really was the quintessential company that made it really, really easy to do business with. So much so that you would open up the box and you would look for the manual, the user manual, and there was no user manual. It was nowhere to be found. And you'd almost think, dang nabbit, confound it, where are the 101, the 1,000 instructions in terms of how to make it work? And all you had to do is just hit the on switch and just follow the prompts and go through not just the motions, because that would almost create an autopilot, but even if it was an autopilot, that's okay. It was just so easy, maybe too easy, seamless, frictionless, the ability to actually get on board and to get cracking and to get started. Why don't more companies do this? Why do we get in our own way? Why do we get in our customers' way and make it challenging to do business with? This should not be a rhetorical question. It should be a question that is asked and answered each and every time. Because you know what? Yes, life is short. Yes, we don't want to spend time interacting even one moment, unnecessary moment, with a company, with a product, or with a service. But at the end of the day, if we truly serve our customer, if we serve each other, then we should be committed to service. We should be committed to making sure that the experiences are joyous, are easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And now it's time to bring on my guest. They actually call him, funnily enough, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Jason easy peasy lemon squeezy Friedman. Of course, that is not true at all. And we're going to be playing Two Truths and a Lie. So we'll get to see exactly who is the biggest liar, liar, pants on fire. I'm really excited to welcome our guest, Jason Friedman. He's a serial entrepreneur and coach dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and small business owners grow and scale their businesses. With a flair for the dramatics and a master of storytelling, Jason has founded and exited 5 successful companies. Now, as CEO of CX Formula, he's teaching businesses how to captivate their audiences using his proprietary kinetic customer formula trademarked. He's also at the helm of Spotlight Brand Services, guiding e-commerce brands to success on Amazon and beyond. So join us as we dive into the insights of a leader whose strategies have earned him accolades like Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year and propelled multiple companies to the top of the Inc. 5,000 list. Jason Friedman, welcome to the show.
Hey, Joseph. How are you, my friend? Glad to be here.
How's it going? How's it going? It took us a minute to organize. You know, we had some technical and personal glitches, but we made it. We made it on the other side.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
It was kind of easy in the end. Like,
yeah.
Well, sometimes. Okay, so I'm already getting a little interesting tangent and almost an interesting one, which is sometimes all it requires. Like, check it where I'm going on this one. Sometimes all it requires is the quintessential take the power out and put it back 30 seconds later, or the reboot. Sometimes it is as easy as that. When things are not working out, you know, just do a quick reboot and a reset. And I got to tell you, like 90% of the time, just taking the power out for 30 seconds or reboot helps. So let's use that as an analogy in terms of making it easy to do. How can we use that analogy in our relationships and in our interactions with customers or beyond?
Yeah, that's a great great connection point. You know, I think in all of our businesses, we get so busy and we're just kind of running through the motions. We often have to reboot. We need to take a moment. We need to take a step back, and we need to do that reboot. And I think it's more important than ever before to do that with our relationships and our customers, and really take a look at, you know, they've been running for a long time, and we seldom take a look back and clean anything up that needs to be cleaned up. So I love that. I love that thought.
I'm going to ask you a question a little bit later. And I've been having a lot of fun with AI, by the way, just because, and it's very, very pertinent, because when we talk about automation, I mean, I could go onto a massive rant, and maybe I will, but it's the quintessential, you know, you go through these IVR systems, and I'm almost like going to say IVS, like IVR systems, and they go, you're very important to us. Your call will be answered in the order it was received. You're number 742. How on earth can we be important to one another, or certainly important to a company, and be number 742 on the list? It makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great analogy. I mean, I've been stuck in the the phone system mess a number of times in the last few weeks, right? I've been working through something with a family member with some medical issues, and so I've been in that, voice recorder system constantly. And here's the thing. I believe that the companies that put all of those steps in place are doing it to they believe they're creating a better experience for people. They think that they're making it easier to connect you to the right person at the right time. What they're doing, however, is they're introducing friction, and they're making it almost unbelievably difficult and frustrating for the customer to go through that, to keep jumping through hurdle after hurdle, to the point where when the person finally, the customer, gets on the phone with someone, if that ever happens, if they hold on for the 700 and whatever, other people in front of them, they're aggravated. They're angry, like they've escalated, and the situation in their mind has gotten worse, and it's a horrible interaction. And so I think, we'll talk more about AI, but I think as we add automation to try and smooth out the process, I think we do it again, usually through the mindset and the lens of the business, not looking at it from the receiver side, right? There's a customer perception that I think is often overlooked.
I want to just take that one step further, which is, I wonder about motivations. I wonder whether they actually believe they're servicing the customer better, and it isn't just how can we fire people, how can we cut costs and do it as an easier way to, if we can't grow our business, which of course inherently is a problem in of itself, right? The leaky sift, the leaky bucket, the attrition and churn, because we're not serving our customers, a double-edged sword. Yep. Then let us at least cut costs and remove all elements of personalization from the equation.
I'm sure that's true in many cases, number one. Number two, I also think that the metric of success with like customer support, customer service is efficiency. How many calls can we do per hour per agent? How quickly can we get people off the phone versus how happy can we make our customers, right? And so like the metrics of success, I think, are totally screwed up. They're wrong, right? And so when I had a business years ago, it was my biggest company, and we had a call center, right? Because part of our job, we help people design experiences in their locations, right? And so part of it was installing technologies that supported that: audio, video, lighting, scent, sound, you name it, right? And they would fail sometimes, or they would need a reboot, right? Whatever it happened to be. And so our metric was like building relationships, and we erred to the side of having more people, because the relationships, their goal of all of our representatives was to make the customer happy, right? It wasn't to solve their technological problem. That was the byproduct. That was the way that they did it. It wasn't the result. The result wasn't solving the problem.
Hang on. I got to interrupt you. This is breaking news. Hang on. Make customers happy.
Yeah.
I think maybe 494 CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies could learn something. I mean, is it as simple as that? Just make them happy.
Yeah, and that shows up in a lot of different ways, right? Right. It's like when we had someone calling and they were frustrated that something wasn't working, and then let's say they did have to sit on hold for a minute, because that could happen. You could have lots and lots of people; they could still all be busy, so they may have to be on hold, right? But as you're communicating them through hold and not making them, go down this like crazy treasure hunt to get to the right person, when they finally get on the phone, it's like our team would actually apologize that they had to take time out of their day to make this call in the first place, and actually say we're sorry that happened, and our goal is to try and get you everything that you need so that we can make the most of your time, and so that you're happy at the end of this call. So if we could ask you just a few questions to help us understand the situation better, we can move you to that place. And they were like, first of all, they were blown away that we apologized for having to spend their time doing this, because they shouldn't have had to, right? Something didn't go right, and it's taking time out of their day. That wasn't part of their job description. It wasn't on their agenda to-do list for the day. And so now they had to do that. All of a sudden they started to feel like, oh, wow, we actually care about them. And so the barriers broke down in the first second. And then we told them that we wanted them to be happy. And they were like, oh, that's awesome.
All I could think about as you were talking just now, was this idea of common sense is anything but common. And, you know, and I think of Zappos and their whole ethos around happiness. And I'll never forget, I was a Jupiter conference. Remember Jupiter Communications? I think it was called Jupiter. Was it called Jupiter? This is like during the early .com days. I was at a custom experience conference, and there was a representative from USAA and they said that a badge of honor, a badge of pride in the company was the longest customer service call that they ever had, which was over 10 hours, which actually didn't result in revenue or a sale. And that is the thing that they're most proud of. And I thought, like, I never forgot that story, that analogy. And this is, I mean, we're talking, Jason, we're talking 2000, we're talking 1999 or 2000, 24, 25 years ago. And I remember that story like it was yesterday. 10 hours on a call that actually didn't result in a sale. How many companies can even get close to that? Almost none.
Again, the goals are skewed, right? We're looking at the wrong metrics, the wrong KPIs, if you will, right? And so I think first thing we have to do is we have to define what is a really solid success criteria. Like in general, for like, we're talking call centers now, but zoom out, right? Like, let's just talk about your customer. Like, what does success really look like? What is the ideal result? And most of us would go to, like, okay, if we have a shoe store, they bought their shoes and they left the store and they had a pair of shoes in their hand. Or if we had a yoga studio, they came for a yoga session and they stretched and they went home, right? Or if they have an online course, they actually signed up and they bought our course and they started taking the course and maybe they completed it, right? It's the mechanics of that we look at as success. But like, if we really think about that happiness quotient and really what do we want from our customers? We want four things. We want them to rave about their experience with us because they really were moved and transformed in some way. We want them to renew our memberships or our ongoing subscriptions and services if we have them. We want them to return to us to buy more products and services. And on an ideal world, we want them to actually recruit others to come and buy from us, because the experience was so good. They have this compulsion. They actually want to go wrangle people and bring them into our business, right? It's not like a passive referral, like, hey, you should check this out. It's like, oh my God, this guy changed my life. You got to go work with them. Like, it's awesome, right? And that's what we really want. And we do that by having them pick out the right set of shoes, having them have an amazing yoga session, having them have an amazing experience and learn something through our course. But we have to look beyond that and see, like, what does success for them look like? What are they going to say? How are they going to feel? And it's the feelings that really matter, especially, you know, we talk about AI and competition in the marketplace. Everything's getting impersonal. And the businesses who make it more personal are going to win.
So I'm giving you the air horn, the time of the first air horn, 23 minutes and 16 seconds. But Jason, I'm going to assume for a second, in fact, I'm not going to assume, because as they say, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. I'm going to assume that it was not a coincidence that you gave me 4 R's there. Am I correct?
Nope, that's the 4 R's, baby.
I was going to say, that sounds like a formula to me. Rave, renew, return, and recruit. Yeah. I love it. And
we call that the ideal result.
And before you even gave that to me, I was thinking, you know, as you were talking, we should not be benchmarking our success based on how many things or how little things go wrong. That should not be the bar. The bar should basically not be, let's not screw up. The bar should be rave, renew, return, recruit. And that's how we move from back foot defensive to front foot offensive, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what builds momentum in your business. That's what starts, like, your successful client stories are your marketing. Your product is your marketing. And so as we start to think about all the dollars we spend on the funnel, the front end of the funnel, right? You got to flip the funnel. We have to start at the end and really look at what customers are doing and how they're feeling. And when we can master that and they can be telling these stories and having these successes, that becomes your marketing. That's when it's going to drive and compel and bring other people into your business. Their enthusiasm, their success is going to be rocket fuel for your business.
Listen, I don't think I've ever gotten up out of my seat during an episode, but I do know of a certain individual who wrote a book called Flip the Funnel.
I've heard about this book.
And it's sitting somewhere up there as well. But yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, first of all, the check's in the mail, Jason. But second of all, I remember, no names mentioned, I was working at the time consulting with one of the largest, let's say, telcos or wireless providers in the country. And I still cannot believe that ultimately, when we looked at their what would be called retention revenue contribution, money coming from people that were returning recurring customers, it was over 90% of their revenue came from the retention bucket. And yet they were chased or invested against, the spend against them was less than 5%. So 95% of this company's budget was going towards what I call strangers and prostitutes. First time, one time acquisition buyers and switchers. I could not believe it.
100%.
And we did the math that if we doubled the amount spent on them and we reduced, a certain amount spent on it, we worked out that they could basically 8x. They could essentially 8x the amount that they spent by only reducing their acquisition by 10%. The numbers were insane. It's almost like, would you even know what to do with this money if you 8x'd what you spent on night? It was just like,
the problem. And so yes. That's exactly, we are like, this is why I love you, my friend. This is why I love you. The thing is that we are so afraid of like slowing down the pipeline in some way. We spend no money on the people that said yes to us. It's all on the strangers, like you said. And so now think about that. That's for a big company, right? And like you said, you're reducing a little bit in the front, but you gain so much on the back. What if it's a small business, a small entrepreneurial company like mine or yours? Like the problem that is like we have no budget to keep our customers happy. We have no budget that we put there. And we're afraid that if we move the dollars from this one side to the other, first of all, we never even thought of that because nobody's talking about it. But if I started to think about it, or when I start thinking about it, I start thinking, well, but if I lower this and I don't get as many people in the front door, I'm going to have a bigger problem. The thing that's interesting, and this is why it works so well when you looked at the telco, is because it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's a quadratic formula, right? Like when I spend $1 on advertising, then I get exponentially more dollars as a return. It's not like a 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1. It's like 100-to-1 at scale. And so when you start doing that and you start creating this amazing obsession with your customers getting positive results, every dollar you put into advertising becomes way, way more on the back end. And so you'll end up, you have a sales force. You're getting an unpaid sales force who is out there bringing customers in. Their stories are things that you can put advertising dollars against and bring in even more customers. And you know that for the majority of the customers that come in, because you built the system, you built the process, you have all the things in place, the likelihood of them having a positive experience and getting those results is way, way higher. So it makes sense to put more money than in the front end once you have this back end figured out. But
yeah, I mean, it is a formula. It is an equation. And that's why I love the way that you talk about it being a quadratic formula. It is exponential. One of the things that I actually wrote now, basically almost 15 years ago, was your most influential salespeople are your customers, and the most credible spokespeople are your employees.
Yep.
And in a perfect world, again, going back to my book, Zero Paid Media as the new marketing model, don't pay for attention, pay attention. If we just focused on our employees and our customers, we actually wouldn't even need to spend 1 penny on acquisition.
Yeah, of
or
course.
At least not pure acquisition.
Yeah, no, for sure. Listen, we're you and I are like, brothers from another mother, for sure, And so as I think about all of this, I've been doing this with companies and teaching this since 1997, right? It's been many, many years. And the thing that's so interesting to me is that like we worry about, like we talk about, I hear all the time, employee churn, like we're losing employees, we're losing customers, we can't attract the best employees. Like when you follow this formula, you attract the best employees. Your employees have a more positive employee experience. They enjoy what they're doing more. They see the results of the work they're doing show up more immediately in the customers. And like, it's that three-legged stool. You know, you have the company, you have the customer, you have the employee, and all of them are supporting one another, and it goes round and round. That momentum, it's the most valuable asset you have. It makes your company worth so much more. One of my favorite things, when I sold my big company, Joseph, I had another company also at the time, a software company. And that software company we were a client of that software company, as were many of my competitors. And I went for a meeting with one of my competitors as the software company. And he's like, dude, he's like, when you sold your company, that was like one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I was like, why is that? He's like, did you walk around? And so we walked around his building, and my entire team was there. He literally hired my entire team away from the company I sold, because he's like, you have built a culture and a team that I have never seen so successful and so aligned and working so well together. And that's one of my greatest like legacy things, like that I'm most proud of, is like by doing the work that we did and focusing on that experience, both internally and externally, we built this powerhouse team that literally stayed together and was such an asset. And it's just, again, it's something I'm so proud of, but it's what helped us scale. Like we scaled our business, not just grew. We had bigger results, a one-to-many kind of approach. And I think that's what we all want, right? And that was actually kind of a byproduct. Like I didn't go in it saying, let's build the biggest, best team in the world. I mean, I wanted to have a great team, but we ended up building like the biggest, best team in the world from our perspective by focusing on our customers and then looking at what is the experience they're having and how do we make it better, and involving and co-creating that journey with our entire team, bringing them into the puzzle so that they understood. And it was just powerful, man. And when we were doing it in the early days, it was kind of like intuition, right? It was like we did it intuitively. And as we started seeing the results, people started saying, wow, like this is kind of neat. And we had to take a step back and say, like, how is this happening? And then we started to put in that formula so that we could kind of repeat it consistently over time. And we started doing it with more and more customers, and we refined it over the years. And that's how we ended up with this. It's not just a customer formula, it's a business formula, right? It's a business growth and scale formula.
Could it be a kinetic customer formula?
It could be. It just might be. Yeah, like it might be. It's an interesting name. I like it. You probably wrote a book about that at some point that I didn't hear about.
I mean, exactly. I'm actually sitting on it right now. Otherwise,
awesome,
Otherwise, I would get up.
Maybe throw my name on it with you. I don't know. We talked about it.
It's keeping me warm and keeping my my posture. So I used to tell people that my book could be a good paperweight, or you could basically, if someone's mugging you, you can actually use it as a weapon. Awesome. It's multiple uses of a hardcover.
That's good.
I was just jotting down this idea as you were talking about this virtue. It's a virtuous or a vicious cycle at the end of the day. And I think that's the important thing for people to recognize. So it's either a vicious cycle, right? You don't treat your employees well, they don't treat your customers well, and therefore, and it goes round and round. Or, it's a carousel, it's a merry-go-round. It is a virtuous cycle that creates and builds momentum. Why is that so hard why is it so hard for companies to realize or recognize? It shouldn't be, right?
I mean, I think it's because like we don't come into the world with all this knowledge, right? We learn either by going to school for it, going to buy a course, listening to gurus, listening to podcasts, like getting that knowledge from people, or we figure it out the hard way, right? And everybody is talking about acquisition. Nobody's talking about the other side, which is why we started to like shout it from the rooftops now. Because especially now, like you have AI out there, like in the online business world, this, like in the online business world, like you could come up with a competitive online product to somebody in 3 seconds using AI. And it may not be quite as good or whatever, but you can have it done. Like barriers to entry are getting reduced, but the barriers to creating the right experience are still there, right? We have to do it. The way to compete, the way to differentiate yourself. Like I think the way your business shows up in the world, the experience that you create and that your customers have, it is your fingerprint. It is what makes it uniquely you. It's what differentiates you in the marketplace. And if you don't pay attention to that now, you're not going to survive. You're just not going to be there. And so I think people just, they haven't been aware. They're busy, their heads down, they're working in their business, not on their business. And if they take a step back, like they get the squeaky wheel emails and the customer support requests and people refunding or asking for returns or defecting or whatever that is. And they kind of like look at it and say, well, that person's a pain in the neck. Or they kind of discount it. They brush it under the rug. They're not analyzing what the issues are and why that's happening and just taking that step back to reboot or what have you. We're so in it, we don't zoom out. We don't shop our own experience. We don't even sometimes remember why we got into business in the first place, Joseph. And we lose sight of what's important.
I want to go a little bit deeper on this idea of your unique fingerprint or thumbprint. And because it's something that you actually write about, and I was looking when I was, doing a bit of research in your bio, and you talk about the power of a proven process, whether the R's and the P's. We don't necessarily think of process as it relates to CX, customer experience, or customer obsession, loyalty, retention, etc. But one of the things, certainly as a coach myself, we talk about the power of process because when it is standardized and streamlined, it is also scalable. And by making it scalable, it actually becomes more profitable. And we use the word actually more fun because it's less frustrating, less confusing, less ambiguous, and also less irregular and unpredictable. But nowhere is this connection made, and you're making the connection that you will actually serve your customers better if you actually have some kind of a rinsable, repeatable, and proven process. So I'd love you to talk about why process actually doesn't stifle this intimacy. It can actually promote better customer health.
Yeah, I would argue that if you don't have a process, you are going to disappoint your customers consistently versus the opposite, right? So like, I think you have to have it. And it's a little shocking that's the case, right? That people are afraid of that. And there's probably a lot of reasons why. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist in any way, although sometimes I feel like one. But so I won't go into why that is because I really don't know. I have some thoughts. We can talk about that if you want. But I'll tell you this, like I kind of learned this in the Mr. Miyagi wax on, wax off way, right? Like I was in theater. I did theatrical performances since I was 8 years old at summer camp. And over the years, I got better at it. I was always behind the scenes. I built sets. I designed lighting. I did all the behind the scenes kind of stuff. And what you learn, first of all, is that like when you want to tell a story and get a really great reaction and get that story to be shared with others, there's a script, right? And a script is kind of a process in a way, right? And then when you stage the show and you put it on, you actually build this whole prompt book, right? You have like all the actors, all the props, everything is rehearsed and it's consistent and you do it exactly the same way, night over night. And guess what? When you have a new audience show up, they laugh in the same spot and they give you applause in the same spot. And you're inciting that authentic reaction from the audience night after night in the same spot. Why? Because we have the process nailed down and we refine the process. Like if we're not getting the laughter there and we want the laughter there, we fix it, we make it better, and then we rehearse it until we get it right. And then that happens over and over again. And we train people into those processes. And so like over 20 plus years of doing that over and over, like it just kind of built in. And that's where I learned about all this. It was literally like this kind of organic Mr. Miyagi experience, like I said. And that's what we bring to the table. Like even the way we look at understanding our customers, understanding our avatar, we look at it through the lens of theater. Like how would an actor get into character if they wanted to believably portray that character on stage? How does Matthew McConaughey become a certain character and when he goes on stage, you actually believe him in film? There's a method for that. And we teach people that method because it helps you deeply understand your customers and their needs and their wants and their desires. And even more importantly, their attitudes and their expectations and where they're coming into your world from and how they're feeling during your world so that you can better serve them. And then you can build the system that actually supports them, right? Because like if we don't do it with a process, we're leaving it to chance. Here's what I know to be true. Whether you design the experience or not, they're having one.
So you're better off designing it, right? Script it, right? So when we talk about that ideal result, the 4 R's, the way we get to what we want them to say is we write a script. We call it the ideal customer script. And Joseph, we get you into character as if you're playing that customer on stage, and we have you write about what their journey looked like with your business, what they were feeling before they started, how they started going on this journey with you, what they felt, what they saw, how they won, what happened to them, and how they feel now that they've come out on the other side. We write that, and then we're able to go back and engineer the path that they go on to almost guarantee that that's the experience they have, and give them the words all along the way with these mile markers that have them understand what's happening and have them have those epiphanies, so that they're at the end, they're like, wow, this was amazing. And they actually say those words. That builds your marketing. And it's all authentic because we've actually put the time in to ensure that they have that experience. It's not an accident.
Well, listen, this may be the first time in the show that I'm actually going to do a standing ovation, which is also bad because you get to see I'm not wearing pants. But no, I'm wearing pants. But it's the old that worked for 2020 and 2021. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Or as Matthew McConaughey would say, all right.
You got it.
There's a lot to unpack there. If we don't have a process, we're leaving it to chance. If you haven't done this, I'm going to give you a little gift. I'm going to birth the gift and give it to you, which is, if you have not written a white paper, a piece, a presentation, a book on what we can learn, what theater can teach us about the ultimate custom experience, you need to go and do that. You need to be able to provide this absolutely brilliant analogy. Now, I will tell you, I will see your theater, by the way, and I will tell you, and I'm going to just, would you like sublime or ridiculous? Actually, would you like ridiculous or ridiculous?
I want ridiculous for 100, Chuck.
Okay, so the first ridiculous is, when I was looking for images of you, there are very limited. There's one image on the internet. Thank God, Chris Hansen hasn't been, collating images from you. And I was like, I need more Jason Friedman images that are freely available, even on your bio. So we're not going to play Two Truths and a Lie because we have too much to talk about. But I decided, given the fact that you have toured with many Broadway shows like Jesus Christ Superstar, Man of La Mancha, Fiddler on the Roof, I decided to create some new images for you, some new bio images. So I'm going to share images from 3 Broadway shows at the moment. You just have to tell me which ones they're from. They should be fairly obvious. So there's your first one.
That was when I was in The Greatest Showman.
The Greatest Showman is correct. Here's the next one. That's an easy one.
Oh, you know what? I don't know that one.
That one would be, The Green Witch. This would have to be Wicked.
Ah, see, I didn't know that one. I've never seen Wicked.
And then the third one, a very successful one at the moment, is one of our founding fathers, or at least may or may not have been in a duel with Aaron Burr.
Is that Alexander, my friend?
Well, it's from Hamilton. So those are your 3. Those are your 3 new images that you can use when you're on the next show. But the other ridiculous part is, our Burger King once did this beautiful activation called Subservient Chicken. And it was somebody dressed up as a giant chicken. And you would be like typing on the screen and telling the chicken to do things. Like, for example, you could tell the chicken to go itself, and it would go like this, or you could tell the chicken to eat a McDonald's burger and the chicken would go like this. So, there were things the chicken absolutely would do, wave, hello, etc. And of course, it became a viral success because everyone was trying to see what the chicken would do, wouldn't do, could do, couldn't do. And someone created a website. It was just a very simple website and said, these are the things the chicken will do. These are the things the chicken won't do. And these are the things the chicken might do. And I thought of red, yellow, and green. I thought of the 3 simple traffic light methodology. It comes back to this. That's why I said you need to do this you need to develop this concept of the script and theater, because at the end of the day, you can follow. It's the same like music. You can follow it to the letter of the law. Then what do you do when things go wrong? There's the concept of improvising on, live, real-time improvising. And then there's the ability to actually have rules of the game or engagement, things that, boundaries and guardrails. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you. And there is a follow-up question in addition to reacting to that, which is, it's the E word. It's empowerment. It's being able to create the freedom and the flexibility with your people to make decisions and make their own decisions without recrimination or retribution, and be able to, make those kinds of sometimes life and death decisions on the job.
100%. Yeah. First of all, I love all that. So yeah, I totally agree. Like the red, green, yellow concept, right? Like in theater, right? Like we have the rules, right? We have the script, we have the characters, we know the story, we know our characters. And if someone were to go off script, they improv, they improvise, but they keep it in character and they keep it on point to the story, right? And so, in our businesses, when our employees really do understand what that ultimate result for our customers are, and they do understand the journey they're going on, they can be empowered to make better decisions. And, for many of us, like, this, like you talk about, like just our business in general, like it starts out with mission, vision, values. And it's basic, it's fundamentals. And many companies don't have those, right? The big companies might, but they're so, I'll say, like detached from reality that they're not actionable, right? They're not necessarily like grounded in a way that matters or means something to them. And so as I build my own companies and I work with my clients, it's like we get clear on those things, because that's how people make decisions. Like your employees are going to make decisions to support your customers. That's how your customers know that this is the place that I want to be part of, and they're all connected. And so I think for all of you, like listening, like as you think about that, like if you want to empower your employees, they have to understand like what is the big why of the company. And then we think like inside, like I like my employees, sure they have a job description, but beyond the job description, they have a position mission. They understand the why of their role in the business and how that relates to other employees, how it relates to the customers, and how it relates to the big why of the company. Because not all of our customers not all of our employees are front facing. They're not all front stage. Some of them are behind the scenes and they never touch a customer. And they sometimes get detached from the daily operations of like what we're doing with our customers. And when you are able to do this, when you really map out your journeys and understand the customer journey, and when you understand your core values and you really understand your position mission, you're no longer detached from the customer outcomes. You are directly connected to that ideal result of the rave, renew, return, and recruit, because that is the goal. That's the holy grail.
I really love that quote, this idea of the why of their role. And then the other part that really resonated with me is this concept of the mission, the vision, the values without action is kind of all dressed up and nowhere to go. You are one of these characters, but you're off stage, or no one is in the theater. And there's no point if there is no action or actionable next step, or if you can't trace it back and say, I know I'm making the right decision for the right reasons because I understand the why of my role. So that now I want to go back to just something you said earlier, because I think it's something that you and I both share in terms of our clientele, which is almost this. I think it's a wonderful message for entrepreneurs and for small and medium businesses and challenger brands. You too can deliver this kind of service and experience. In fact, you may actually be able to do it even better than the behemoths, the 800-pound gorillas.
Absolutely.
So I'd love you to talk a little bit about what is the X factor here for smaller and medium businesses, the entrepreneurs out there, to be able to utilize this without necessarily having the big bucks and the budgets.
One of the biggest kind of objections that I always hear to like investing in I'll say like the back end of the funnel, right? The fulfillment side or the experiential side of this is they think it's going to be too expensive. It's going to be cost prohibitive. And it is not. It doesn't have to be, I'll say it that way, right? Like it's the thinking that changes the game. It's the way you view your customers and looking at it. You know, we started off by talking about this idea that I think both share, is that we make it hard for our customers to do business with us. And we don't do it necessarily on purpose all the time. Some of us do, some of us don't. Some of us do it because we're not paying attention. Some of us do it by accident. But just thinking about it, for an entrepreneurial business, we have ability to pivot and change and do things quickly. We don't have to govern with consensus, and we don't have boards of directors and shareholders and all these other people to appease. We have one boss, and that really is our customers. And so we have to make them happy, and we have to keep them happy. And so I think, like, just thinking about the beginning of a relationship, you know, if I go back to your idea of like what theater can teach us on the ultimate customer experience, right? The one thing that I share often that people seem to like really understand and resonate with is this idea of transitions, right? Like in theater, every time there's a scene change, we have an opportunity to make it great, to make it seamless, to make it fluid. And in theater, we rehearse the scene changes over and over until we get them right. So they operate like clockwork, so that's consistent every time. When it's transition or a scene change is clunky, that's where we lose people. That's where in the theater, they stop paying attention. They start checking their phones. They get up and leave for the restroom. And that's where, like in your business, we're losing people at all of those transition moments. And so just think about the very first transition, when they said yes to your sales pitch or your presentation and they became a customer. We have to onboard them, right? That onboarding, we often screw it up. We think, oh, amazing, they said yes. Let me tell them everything they need to know right now. And we just vomit on them, right? You talked about Apple, right? We give them a 400-page manual for some people on how to use the device. For Apple, we just give them very simple steps and we hold their hand and walk them down the path. How does it look for your business? What does that most important first moment look like? And how do we walk them through that? As an entrepreneurial small business, we have opportunities to fine tune these moments where we can actually delight our customers and have them feel like, wow, that really felt good. Like, I like the way I feel with it. I'm excited to go to the next step. I want to be here. This is a great relationship, right? Here's the thing. When people buy something from you, it's really an intention. It's not a commitment. We have to earn that commitment. And so they know they have a refund policy. They're not committed. They have a way out. They have a back door, right? So it's like buyer's remorse is going to set in depending on the amount of money they spent, right? Or how important this thing was to them. So we have a duty, now that we know this, to like make it better and to smooth it out and to make it seamless. As small businesses, we can do that easier. We're more nimble, we're more capable, and the customers that are working with us, we're more personal, right? We can build relationships bigger, better, and faster.
Love it. And this is the quote that I found for you. The best way to control your customer experience is to intentionally create it. And this is L. Robertson. As simple as that. You've got to actually have, this is a different intention, right? And I love that, the fact that a buy, I've never heard that before. The first time they buy from you, that is not a commitment, it's an intention. But you have to have an intention to ultimately build and deserve and earn that commitment.
Yeah, you got to.
The best way to control it is to create it, as opposed to have it control you. You know,
Amen.
We say entrepreneurs and business owners feel out of control. They're out of control because they never actually went to create something intentionally. They just basically fell into it or stumbled into it or kind of hit that conveyor belt. And so I wanted to share this quote with you.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, so we're playing around a little bit. As I said, how can man and machine work together? And so I went to machine and I said, give me some questions to ask Jason that would be considered different questions and unorthodox questions, provocative questions. They're not that bad, don't worry. So the first is this idea of disruption in the comfort zone, which is it actually possible to make things too easy, where people don't work for anything, where it just falls into their laps, and because of that, that sense of accomplishment or fulfillment is missing?
Yes, I believe it is. You can make it too easy, so to speak. I think there's a difference between difficult and complicated, though. And so I think what has to happen in order to challenge people, We have to increase the level of difficulty with you, if you will, with the level of skill that they've attained in something, right? So like if you have a training program, if everything's just super easy and it doesn't get any more difficult, at some point they're going to lose interest, right? And so like in online courses, for example, which, you know, I've created online courses and helped other people with that. Like there's this flow channel, right? And it's, if you keep them in that flow channel, it's like a pull upwards. And so as you increase the level of difficulty, if you do it too quickly and they haven't built the skills and the excitement and the momentum, you'll lose them. If you do it too slowly, you'll lose them. So there is a just right kind of place for that. And you have to see, and it's based on your program, your things, and your customers, and they're not all created equal. So it's really important to know the different avatars or personas that you operate within your business and to tailor and mass customize that experience for each of them appropriately.
Okay, so the score right now is man 1, machine 0. You nailed that one. I have a quote that I often use, which is simple, not simplistic, complex, not complicated. So there is power of simplicity, but not making it too simple, right? There is nothing wrong with complex, but at the same time, let's not make it too complicated. All right, here's the second question, and it's around customer detachment. Are we breeding customers now who have no emotional connection to the brand or company? They might have an emotional connection to the function or transaction. This is a question about automation and even AI, that we've stripped out the human from the equation, and because of that, we are losing this really strong emotional or relational capital that perhaps was present in the past.
I think so. So my answer would be yes, but I don't think it's all technology. I think it's also like relationships. Like I talk about this relationship paradox all the time, where, you know, it's like if you think back for a moment to when you first met your significant other, someone you're in a relationship with, we obsess over all the details in the beginning of the relationship because we're so worried about what they think, how they feel, what have you. And over time, we become more familiar, so familiar that we stop courting. And we don't have date nights anymore, and we don't obsess over some of those details and things that we know matter to the other person because we take it for granted. And I think technology makes it easier and automates or speeds up that process happening. And so I think we have to really think about, like, if we want to have a good relationship, what does a good relationship look like? And how do we have back and forth? And what are people connecting with, and who or what are they connecting to? So I think it's important today. It's not just the technology. I think it's, even if we don't use any AI or lots of tech in our business, we still detach, especially online business owners. You can't find a phone number for some online businesses or a way to connect with them. It's like, you want me to drop a couple $1,000s to buy something from you, but I can't have a relationship.
Right.
With you. And so I think we all have to look at that in our business, online, offline, between the lines, whatever that is, because a relationship with a business, that's what builds trust, you know? Yeah.
So score is now man 2, machine 0. And I really love this concept of customer date nights. So this is almost like this ability. How do you keep the relationship fresh? How do you keep it current? How do you almost make sure that, and this is, you know, there is a lot more to this point, because ultimately when you've moved from intention to commitment, when you have a lifelong fan, a raving fan, you know, someone who's truly loyal, how do you still create the moment that it almost feels like the first time? So it's almost like a different kind of a paradox.
Well, and there's a danger here, right? And I'm like the guiltiest of committing this in my past, not so much anymore because I learned this lesson the hard way. But once you have a customer, or maybe it's an affiliate or a referral partner who you've got a solid relationship and it works and everything's going well, you turn your attention to the broken ones or the ones that aren't working as well, because you feel like, oh, that customer's good or that relationship's good. And you start to ignore it because you're more worried about triaging other things.
Yeah, it's complacency in
a nutshell. It's a mistake is what it is also, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I remember my coach asked me a question. He's like, you know, who's your largest check, right? Like, where do you get most of your referrals and whatever for? And I did the math and I started looking at it, and I hadn't even realized that this one person at the time that I did this exercise, this one specific man who was an amazing person, good friend, was responsible for over 80% of the business that I had. One person. And this was the only person that I just totally took for granted. Like, I didn't call him, I didn't check in. He would just send stuff my way because we did a good job for his clients and other people that he knew needed us. I wasn't even thanking him really. Like, I became machine-like, and I didn't even like connect the dots that he was the one that was responsible for it till I had that wake-up call, and I was like, oh my God. Like, that's the opposite of what I do and what I teach. And I just fell into it because I got in it. I was in my business working on stuff. I didn't zoom out. I didn't pay attention. And so I think in our personal lives also, we take the people that are most important to us, that are closest to us, and we take that for granted a lot of times.
All right. So the last question is called the loyalty paradox, which is, if you could dismantle all loyalty programs as we know them and start fresh, what would you do and how would you do it?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question. And I feel like you might have modified that from what AI came up with a little bit. But let's see.
I mean, that was a good call.
I don't think AI would have come up with that one. And I don't even know you that well yet, but we're going to change that. In any event, look, I don't know what I would do with all of it, but what would be at the core of it would be reward and recognition both, right? In most loyalty programs right now, it's heavily reward and little recognition. And I believe this. People do what you pay them to do, right? So if I give you a salary, this is your job, like, you do it. But people love doing what you reward and recognize them for doing, right? And so I think the reward is awesome, but the recognition is more awesome. I think it feeds our souls. I think it feeds our hierarchy of needs, if you go back to Mr. Maslow. And I think we oftentimes are not as focused on that second part of that. And so I think it should probably be recognition and reward.
I will give you my standard line here, basically, which is, I've tried to get Maslow on the show, but for some reason he doesn't return my calls. But Maslow and Man 3, Machine 0. I feel very close to that response. In Flip the Funnel, AIDA, I flipped AIDA to AIDA: acknowledgement, dialogue, incentivization, and activation. And the definition of incentivization is recognize and reward. You know, I even talk about something as simple as, we have employees of the month. Why not have customers of the month?
Yep.
But also, Jason, just one more point there, which is things like, you know, I'm at a point now, it's actually happening within days, where for the first time in almost 2006, so in 18 years, I've maintained executive platinum status on American Airlines. In 18 years, flown 100,000 or more. I've got almost 3 million miles. Not only am I going to lose this now for the first time, and there's just no connections, like crickets in the company, but I also had what's called an EVIP, a certificate for an anytime upgrade. But of course, instead of roll it over, I earned it fair and square. Instead of keeping it, it's use it or lose it as well. There's so many commonsensical elements to a loyalty program. And you just think if someone was running it with common sense, they'd run it differently.
I agree. I'm a United guy. So United Airlines is my thing, and I'm a 2 million miler, not a 3 million miler. So I feel like I used to feel like I flew a lot till I just heard that. Now I feel like a slacker. But I'm one of those guys. Yeah, well, I don't.
You're
really,
catching up.
Yeah, I'm not flying as much anymore either. But I'll say this: like, I like getting the elusive on ours. Like, there was like this elusive like global services. Like, you can't earn it; they have to award it. You have to be invited to it. And that was special. And when I got that the first time, it felt like such a huge level of recognition. And they do a lot of work with that. Like, when you get on the plane, they recognize you as global services. They have a special place for you to check in that's separate from everybody else, beyond like the normal frequent flyers and whatever. And I will say, like, I did lose that also this past year, and it was sad. Like, I'm like, can I spend more for the sake of staying in it? Like, because I really wanted to keep that level for some reason. And what's interesting is they sent me an email, like literally like a week or two ago, And it was like, you can get back in. All you have to do is this. And they gave me a list of rules of what I needed to do. And it was unreasonable in a bad way.
Pay,
and so
pay,
like,
pay, and pay.
And pay. And so I was like, like, I'm not doing that. And I don't even want to be in that club anymore, because it's really all about the money that you've spent, not about the loyalty to the airline.
Well, let me tell you, the only club I want to be in is a club where I can use the George Washington Bridge to hang out with my new friend, Jason Friedman, and find out more about Thunder Chicken. This is another story that for another day. Do you see? I had so much. Look how beautiful this image is. It's even, even AI got Thunder Chicken written correctly as well. His name is Jason Friedman. He's the CEO of CX Formula. And if you are not converted from intention to commitment, then my friends, you never will be if you are ready to defeat the machines and at the same time make it really easy to do business with your customers. Please go ahead and give him a call. But in the interim, follow CX Formula on the X. Follow both Jason and CX Formula on the Insta. Connect with him, them. Their personal pronouns are him and them on LinkedIn. Follow him on MetaBook. And Jason, you now have the keys to this studio. You can come back anytime. It's been an absolute pleasure, as I knew it would be. And hopefully next time, I don't know if you know this, but we actually have a co-host here that sometimes comes in. Of course, it's Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
Awesome.
And we will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.